Okay, we're going to be reading our comprehension. Our comprehension is genre, nonfiction. An article in a newspaper or magazine presents facts and information. So, what we're going to be reading now is not going to be a story, but it's going to be an article in a newspaper or magazine, and it will give us facts and information. So it will be closer to more of our expository writing, in which we just do facts. We're not going to hear as many adjectives or figures of speech. We are going to go over fact and opinion. If I believe something, then that is an opinion. A fact is something that's going to be universal to everyone. It is a fact that we live on the planet Earth. It is an opinion that I like living on Earth, or someone may prefer to live on Mars. Those are opinions. A fact is the planet we live on is called Earth. A fact is something that can be proven to be true. An opinion is a belief that may not be supported by facts. I do have a video that is posted in our ELA on facts and opinions, and we will be doing worksheets later on this week. Heroes in time of need. How can kids make a difference when natural disaster strikes? A natural disaster is a disaster caused by nature, not something that we bring on ourselves. So earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, forest fires, if it was like done by like a lightning bolt, that would be a natural disaster. A disaster that we bring on ourselves would be something that's man-made. In 2005, Mother Nature proved just how powerful she can be. In the United States, one of the worst hurricane seasons pounded coastal areas. Katrina, the strongest hurricane that year, slammed the Gulf Coast. Now, Katrina was a natural disaster that happened, and it was a hurricane, and it went past Louisiana. And I was alive during this time period, and Barry was alive, but you guys, you're just too young. You guys were not involved. And this happened in the United States. The violent hurricane destroyed parts of the Mississippi and Alabama, and it flooded the city of New Orleans. You guys, these people were in turmoil for a while, and even people from my church went and tried to help rebuild. But even to this day, it's not the same, and it changed the morale of the whole state. So what you want to get from here is in 2005, Mother Nature brought a hurricane, which occurs every year in different parts of the country, and it was a horrible one, and okay, so here's the land. Some land is above sea level, some land is below sea level. Unfortunately, New Orleans falls below sea level. So when we have something like a hurricane happens, these areas are going to be affected a lot because they're below sea level. So the water is just going to straight flood the whole area. And so when you have the whole city flooded in feet and feet and feet of water, you could see the damage it does to people, food, environment, your shelter. And then it comes on with diseases that comes to follow, people dying. And so it was a big deal. In South Asia, citizens began the year rebuilding after a tsunami destroyed coastlines from southern India to the island nations of Indonesia. So here's another one, a tsunami. On December 26, 2004, more than 200,000 people were killed in the tsunami, and millions were left in need of help. So again, I know certain countries actually, when you have a big, strong earthquake, you'll get a tsunami in the water that will go on the other side of the world. So like when Japan had its earthquake, we actually had a little slight tsunami, but like if there's an earthquake somewhere, it's going to affect the water, and it's going to then you're going to have different areas that are affected by the tsunamis. Now, in certain areas, you're more prone to that, especially if you live by the ocean and you're an island, so like Taiwan. But here is an area that was affected. So in this one, it happened in 2004. 200,000 people were killed, and it left million, again, they needed help because food, water, shelter, finding family. If you have this much water in you, how do you live and you function? So now when we talk about the tsunami and when we talk about the hurricane, these are events that happen, and so obviously it's a fact. Let me open up page 2. Okay. Am I sharing my screen? Let me share. Okay, here we go. Former President Bush. So right now our president is Biden. Before Biden, we had Trump, right? Before Trump, we had Obama, and he served 8 years, right? And then before Obama, we had Bill Clinton. So remember, right now we're just in our first year with Biden. So we're just into our first month. Trump served 4 years. Then Obama served 8 years. So 8 and 4 is 12. This is before that. So it's anywhere between 12 and 20 years ago, because that's when Bill Clinton served. Former President Bill Clinton and George Bush. So here's George Bush, and he was, oh no, I forgot a whole president. I forgot a whole president. Actually, it was Obama, Bush Jr., then Clinton, and before that it was Bush Sr. So this is George Bush's Jr.'s daddy. This is Sr., but he was here to visit. George Bush talks to the people organizing and rebuilding the efforts after the Asian tsunami. A terrible earthquake shook parts of Afghanistan, India, and Pakistan in 2005. The earthquake, destroyed entire villages and killed about 80,000 people. The quake also left more than 3.3 million people homeless. Those who survived, so those who lived, those who didn't die, those who lived, this disaster had no shelter. So remember I said tsunamis, they're caused by earthquakes. And so there was a massive earthquake in Afghanistan. It hit Afghanistan, India, and Pakistan in 2005. And right away, 80,000 people died because of these earthquakes. And it left 3.3 million people homeless because the buildings had fallen, and so they have nowhere to live. So teaming up. What do these three disasters have in common? So when we look at the hurricane, and then we look at the tsunami, and then we look at the earthquake, what do these three disasters have in common? A wave of generosity following the three tragedies. Originally, citizens throughout the world opened their hearts and wallets to people in need. Acting like heroes, people donated time, money, and other survivors of these natural disasters. So again, like I said, my church, we actually had people donate money, donate supplies, and they actually went over there and helped in the rebuilding process of Louisiana. But when we hear of these events happening, I know there was an earthquake in Haiti, a big one, and I bought a CD just to kind of donate money to the cause. And people, we get generous and we have empathy and we want to help other people. So during these time periods is when we all come together as a group to say, you know what, we're fine right now, but if we're in need, we need people to help us and support us. So when other people are in need, doesn't it make sense to kind of give a little bit of ourselves and pitch in to help them? After Asia's tsunami, former President George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton joined up to raise money for the relief efforts. These two were former opponents. So, yeah, they were former opponents before, and one's a Democrat, one's a Republican, right? But they know that they could make great impacts as a team. than alone. So they know that, hey, even if you have a different political party, when all is said and done, we're one country, we're one unit, and we're one helper. And so they came together in order to raise money for the better good. They got together again to raise money for Katrina victims. Shortly after these disasters, rescuers braved dangerous conditions to bring survivors to safety. After earthquakes, when you're moving buildings and rubbish, you're saving people sometimes 2 or 3 days later. But adults were not the only ones who stepped up to the plate. Plenty of kids joined grown-ups to hold fundraisers in the communities and schools. Some even delivered needed medicines, food, and supplies to the people in need. And so, again, it's not just one person, it's a lot of people, just people like you and I coming together to say, what can we do to make a difference? So I'm going to go over some of the basic questions. I know, actually, let me keep reading so that you guys can get the other pages, and then we'll go over some of the basic questions. Mm. Okay, here we go. So we talked about those three natural disasters, and then we talked about the two presidents doing their part. Now, we're not old presidents, but what can we do to make a difference, right? So, kids helping out. What can we do just as people? Leo Obamidi, 14, of Euless, Texas, is one example of a kid who got involved in the rescue efforts. When we hear the word involved, what does involve mean? In this case, it says a kid who participated, who joined, who made an effort, who made a difference, who did something. So she got involved, which means she started her efforts. My school, the North Hill School, is one of many schools in Texas that helped hurricane victims. Loya said she and her classmates raised money for the charity that supplied many victims with food, water, clothes, and other basic necessities. And this is what she looks like. Also, our school is hosting 3 victims of the hurricane. So when they say they're hosting them, it means that they're sponsoring them and helping them out. And they're going to provide some of the needs that they have. They're going to provide whether it's medicine, food, or clothes, and then provide those supplies to them. It may not seem like a lot compared to the hundreds some schools are taking in, but at least we're able to make a difference in their lives. So they're saying they may not be able to help 100 people, but just even making a difference in 3 lives, that's something, right? Across the country, groups of kids got involved by making bake sales, setting up drink stands. One of them was Avery Hardy, 12 years old, right here. Avery Hardy, 12 years old, from Santa Barbara, California. And that's actually right up north from us. Like, right? We're in LA, so we're in Southern California. So go straight up north, and then you're going to hit Santa Barbara. He said, there are lots of lemonade stands in Santa Barbara. My friend and I started one at the beach, and we made about $50. So just by doing that, they were able to they were able to raise money and help for the cause. Avery said he was inspired by the act by Santa Barbara's First Responder Fund. This group is made up of Santa Barbara's area's firefighters and police officers. They held a fundraiser to educate locals about Hurricane Katrina. So actually what you're saying is, hey, it wasn't even our idea. It was something that we saw the firefighters doing, and we decided to piggyback off their idea. Is that good to piggyback off people's ideas? Yes, it is. It's always good to do that because all of our ideas come from other people. It's good to share our ideas and implement them too, because even though the firefighters are able to make some money, now they're able to make some money too. They held a fundraiser to educate. Okay. They also collected donations and raised awareness about hurricane victims. The group sent 8.9 million in medicine and medical supplies to Louisiana and Mississippi. So they were able to make $50 from their lemonade stand, but the group of firefighters, they were able to actually raise 8.9 million. Does that mean we shouldn't do it if we could only make 20, 30, 40, $60? No, no. It means all of us can make a difference, and every $50 help to add up to that 8.9 million. So here it's just saying many young people organized projects to raise money to help Katrina. And I remember this. I remember when this was happening, I was able to get involved. We are on our last page. Let me share. And so what I'm getting from this is everyone can make a difference, no matter how big you are, no matter how small you are. Okay? New ways to make a difference. Bake sales, so we had lemonade stands, right? We had just donations, right? We have people that went over there and then physically helped out. But bake sales and fundraisers are great ideas. But many people found new and creative ways to help. So we're going to hear some other ideas. In Bethesda, Maryland, a group called Project Backpacks filled more than 10,350 backpacks with school supplies for Katrina's youngest survivors. What a great idea. So what this group is called Project Backpack, they were thinking outside the box. Like, you know what? Students, they don't have their school supplies. And so what they did is they provided 10,350 backpacks filled with school supplies for the victims that lived in Katrina. In schools across the United States, kids participated in Reading for Relief fundraisers to benefit Tsunami victims. So one was for the Katrina students, and they provided these backpacks, and it was called Project Backpack. But then another one was for the Tasamis. And what they did is they said, I'll read so much. And based on how much I read, maybe my mom could give me $1 for every chapter I read. Or maybe you could give me a nickel for every page I read. And they would read and then use this money to give to the victims of the Tasami. The Tasami, the quake, and the Hurricane Katrina were tragic events. Tragic means sad. Obviously, they were all natural disasters. Nobody could control this. This is something Mother Nature brought on to us. But we learned what good can come when nations come together to help survivors of disasters. So, what they're saying is, though these tragedies happened to us from Mother Nature, we can still come together and show kindness and good, something good could come out of it. Not the disaster itself, but just by how we respond to it. Countries all over the world send equipment, food, blankets, doctors, tents, medicine, and other resources to help the victims recover. As we saw in 2005, Mother Nature's worst often brings out the best in humanity. And what they're saying is, would we have ever done this backpacking to donate it to the Katrina, the Katrina students if this event, this natural disaster, if this hurricane didn't happen? Probably not. Would we have had the lemonade stand to raise money for earthquake victims or tsunami victims? Probably not. So actually, from these natural disasters happening, it actually brings an alumni in and a friendship that we would normally not have. Here it says the Katrina sisters started Project Backpack. So these are three sisters, and they started Project Backpack. They show some donated backpacks. So these were donated, and they have school supplies. So here it's, why did Avery help out the victims of Hurricane Katrina? And we know that Avery helped out because she was trying to do her part, right? And she had a heart for them. The article refers to people who helped the survivors as heroes. Is this a fact or is this an opinion? Explain your answers. Now, this one's kind of tricky. Because you help out, does that make you a hero? Or is that an opinion that you're a hero? So I would say this is an opinion. Why? Because the definition of a hero, well, maybe we could look up the definition of a hero and then we could decide if it follows the definition of a hero, then we could claim it as a fact. But if it doesn't follow the definition of a hero, I'm not saying they're not a hero. It would just be an opinion that they are a hero. In what way might you or your classmates help victims of a natural disaster? This is something we're going to be doing in class because I always feel that we should be thinking of how to give back. So even in this time of COVID, I feel like it's kind of a natural disaster, right? Every 100 years or so, some kind of plague or virus comes around, and so I think that it's always good to be thinking, how can we help other people, even in this time of needs, whether it's providing hand sanitizers, masks, reading groups, tutoring. And so maybe we can get together and as a group, we'll discuss what can we do to help somebody else. How is the situation Jeremy faces in Thank Brother different from the one Loyal Obamedidi and her classmates face in this article? So this will be a compare and contrast, and we'll be reviewing that in class as well. I'm going to open up the questions for the week to see if we could kind of review. What is the author's message about natural disasters? So I feel the message is a natural disaster is something that happens given to us by Mother Nature. And her message is, even though disasters happen, us as a community could give back and help out. And we can, kind of like it says here, here's sums it up. Mother's nature's worst often brings out the best in humanity. And I think this is the best way to sum it up. Avery Hardy sets up a lemonade stand to raise money for victims of. Okay, so this one here is not going to say the answer, but I'm going to go back to the text. And this is what I encourage the kids to do, to go back to the test. And it says right here, Avery Hardy's group, they held a fundraiser to educate locals about Hurricane Katrina. So that's the answer for number 2. Number 3, why does the answer mention Bill Clinton and George Washington Bush? George W. Bush. Guessing Washington. George W. Bush. Now we already know, I'm going to actually change the page here. And I am going to share page 1 where we talk about George W. Bush. And let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. And it says, why does the author? Well, they mention it because these two people organized and had an organizing and rebuilding the efforts for the Asian tsunami. They actually came together to help raise awareness and raise money for the tsunami. And then after they did this, they even said shortly after they actually then helped raise money for Katrina. Here, they got together again and raised money for Katrina. So the reason why they brought it up is it's not just us as regular citizens to help out, but you have these iconic people who are willing to come together to help out too. Number 4, Backpack. Project Backpack provided the youngest survivors of Katrina with backpacks full of. Okay, now we know it's saying the youngest survivors because it was school kids, but we already know that Project Backpack is mentioned in the last page. Let me share. Oh, it is sharing. Okay, let me just reshare it, make sure it's big. It's saying quakes, here we go. More, with school supplies for the youngest survivors. So actually Project Backpacks filled more than 10,350 backpacks with school supplies. So school supplies will be the answer for number 4. Which area experienced the tsunami in 2004? So what I'll do is I'm going to leave this page and I will go back to where it talks about the tsunami in 2004. Here it goes in 2004. So it says which area in South Asia citizens began a year rebuilding after the tsunami destroyed the coastline from southern India to the island nations of Indonesia. So that's our answer. Survivors means, donated means, involved means. So these are all words that were brought up here. Survivors means people who lived. Donated means somebody that gives something, right? Involved means to participate and be active. What is Mrs. Kaplan's favorite animal other than a dog? I'm going to be changing that question to Mrs. Yates and I'll tell them the answer. That's a free question. So don't worry about that last one, but that will be me. I'll probably say, what will my answer be? I think I'm going to say a panda. Panda is going to be the answer and I'll change the name for that, panda. Okay. Bye, you guys.